Our nation's veterans are on the front lines of a new fight, advocating for lung cancer screening and powering the next wave of research using blood tests to screen for lung cancer.
In this episode of Lung Cancer Foundation of America's Hope with Answers podcast, Air Force and Navy veteran Donnita Butler shares how a simple scan saved her life, alongside Dr. Drew Moghanaki, who reveals how today's screenings and clinical trials are shaping tomorrow's cures.
Thousands of veterans have participated in very high volume and are rolling their sleeves up to help us find a better cancer screening test. So just like when you go into your doctor's visit once a year and give blood to check on, I don't know, your cholesterol, or do you have diabetes, you can have another test using the same drop of blood that says, do you have cancer?
Lung cancer is a tough topic. It's a disease that affects patients, families, friends, co-workers. But first, it's a disease that affects people.
Advances in lung cancer treatments over the last few years have made it possible to live with lung cancer for years after diagnosis.
The Hope with Answers Living with Lung Cancer podcast brings you stories about people living, truly living with lung cancer, the researchers dedicated to finding new breakthrough treatments, and others who are working to bring hope into the lung cancer experience. Thank you both for joining us. We really appreciate it. I'm going to start with you, Donnita. Can you share a little about your service background and how you first learned that you had lung cancer?
Thank you for having me here. The way I was in the Air Force. That was in the early 70s. I was a hydraulic mechanic on B-52s. And then after that, I went to Florida State for a while, and then I went into the Navy. And in the Navy, I was a data processor. That's what they called IT back then. And after the Navy, I went civil service. And so I was able to combine my Air Force and my military years with my civil service years and retire with 38 years of service. The way I found out that I had lung cancer was every year when my Blue Cross Blue Shield benefits brochure would come out, I would review the beginning of the brochure where it said what's new and what's gone away and what's new. And I saw in there that there was a low-dose lung cancer screening CT. And I knew that I had had a smoking history, and I saw that I qualified for that screening. So I requested it. The first screening, nothing was found. It took me 5 years before I had another screening because COVID happened and then grandbabies came along, and 5 years slipped by real fast. When I had the second screening, I was called the same day, and they had found a nodule. And they said, get to a pulmonologist right away. It's urgent. Interesting thing is that when I was referred to a thoracic surgeon by my pulmonologist, and he looked at both scans, and he went to the same location in the first scan, he was able to see it in the first scan. But, hindsight is 20/20. It was so small. It wasn't noticeable. It wasn't considered anything. And, but what he said to me at that time was that shows that it was a very slow growing cancer. So that was how I found out that I had lung cancer.
Dr. Moghanaki, when you hear Donnita's story, can you kind of explain for our audience why our nation's veterans as a group really face such a high risk of lung cancer compared to maybe the general population?
Well, my understanding and everyone else's in the scientific community is continuing to evolve. I think that the common denominator of what's causing lung cancer really is toxic exposures to the lungs. So we know that cigarettes is one vehicle for toxic exposure. We know radon is as well, but there's so many other chemicals and other exposures that we inhale every single day that increases the damage to the immune system of the lungs, that allows the little sprouts of tumors to gain life and grow. And our veterans, we know, often have worked around toxic environments. We have now multiple national initiatives that do much more than acknowledge this is real and it happened. But we have airborne hazards registries more commonly referred to as burn pit registries, where we are actively studying to better understand the mechanisms of why our soldiers and former soldiers and those who served on various bases, either in the U.S. or over in other nations, do have more lung issues in general, including lung cancer. And it's just something that I'm glad that the VA has come to accept to address it on a national scale.
Absolutely. I mean, it's so important that we just look and see what we have and work with it from there. And Donnita, Dr. Moghanaki talked about burn pits. I know in previous conversations with you, we've talked about asbestos, and of course, Agent Orange is also among the exposures that are tied to military service. Looking back, were you aware that these might affect your health?
Well, it's an interesting question. When I was in the Air Force, hydraulic mechanic on B-52s, one of the things that we were responsible for were the bomber brakes, and the bomber brakes were lined in asbestos back then. And we would rebuild those brakes. So we'd bring the brakes into the shop, and then they would be, they'd be drilling things out, and asbestos fibers would be all through the air. And I never thought anything of it. Now, I was in my early 20s. I don't think, and we're talking about in the early 70s. I don't think society was at the same level of understanding as we are now back then. So I didn't think anything of it then. And I didn't even think of it when I was first diagnosed with lung cancer. So when I was in the Navy, I was in an old World War II building next to the Pentagon, and it was filled with it. And there were the stanchions, the pipes were wrapped in asbestos, and there was places where there was rips in the asbestos, and it would be spilling out. And then they did some asbestos mitigation in some areas when they were trying to build a new computer room, and they hung up sheets of plastic and brought contractors in with breathing apparatus on for them that were on the other side of the plastic. But for those of us that were in the cubicles on the other side, we were just there. I just can't imagine that sheet of plastic held back to a safe level everything that needed to be held back. So there was asbestos exposure there too. And then I grew up in Maine. Maine is almost every county in Maine is in the red zone for radon. That's not my military, but that's just another risk factor that I had, was a lot of radon exposure in my life.
Yeah, we all, hear about air pollution, toxins, radon, asbestos, but we typically think, well, that's going to affect someone else. We maybe not think it's going to directly affect us. So, Dr. Moghanaki, what would you wish more veterans knew about these risks, but also the importance of screening?
Look, we know lung screening saves lives, and especially in people who smoked a little bit more than they should have. The message is, if you smoked, go get your lung screened, because guess what? Lung cancer is curable. No one needs to die of lung cancer if you catch it early. And that's the most important message. I think a lot of people don't know that.
I have a question for both of you, because when you think about how the statistics show that only a small percentage of veterans are being screened, those that are eligible are being screened, why do you think that number is so low? And Dr. Moghanaki, I'm going to start with you. What do you think?
Well, I definitely want to hear Donnita's thoughts on this, because I have a different perspective. So we have to remember there's about 20 million veterans right now in the US, and only half of them actually use the VA for their health care. Only half are eligible. It's not a national priority. No healthcare system has really owned it to say, let's get every one of our subscribers screened. I don't know a single insurance agency who said, we're insuring, let's say, X million numbers of lives. Let's make sure anyone at risk in that population gets screened. I just don't know about that happening. But I have good news. The Veterans Health Administration in the last several years, actually, through a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, people in the trenches, a true grassroots campaign, built enough momentum and energy that we actually passed policy. All VA medical centers now chase down anyone over the age of 50 to document, did you smoke? How much did you? Oh, you're eligible for screening. And we talk to these veterans to go get their lung screened. And so the rates of lung screening inside the VA healthcare system are soaring. I mean, we're screening hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of veterans at risk, trying to get to, we estimate about 1.2 to 1.5 million veterans who currently use the VA for their healthcare are at risk. And I haven't seen the numbers actually in several months. I wouldn't be surprised if we're getting close to a million. So inside the VA, it's happening because why? Because the VA decided to make it a priority, and it's actually not an option. You can't, there's no VA medical center that's allowed to run in this country unless it has a screening program that's actively identifying how much people smoked, confirming if they're eligible for screening, and getting their lungs screened.
I love that. That's so important to hear that it really is changing. But Donnita, you had to really fight to get screened, correct?
I had to go and request my lung cancer screening because I knew that I was eligible because I had read my insurance brochure, but I got pushback inside the medical community when I asked for that. I don't understand why that is the case, but that was the case for me. When I got my first screening, it came back okay. And I went 5 years before I had another screening. What I find disappointing in that 5 years is that yes, COVID happened. And yes, I had grandchildren. And yes, it is my responsibility to take care of myself. And I didn't ask for another screening. It's supposed to be an annual exam and I didn't ask. But what I find disappointing is that it wasn't, I had to go back to get my cholesterol medicine and it was never suggested to me that maybe I should get another screening. I find that very disappointing. I don't know why. I don't understand that. When they knew that I qualified, believe me, they say something about mammograms, and believe me, they say something about my DEXAs, and believe me, they say something about my Pap smears, but they never say anything about my lung cancer screening.
So there's a little bit of stigma out there that may still be
I
prevalent.
don't understand it. I don't understand why that is such a hard thing. If you can say, did you get your mammogram yet? Did you get your Pap smear? It's time for your DEXA? Why can't they say lung cancer screening?
And you got to wonder if some people maybe are hesitant, some veterans maybe are hesitant about going to get screened because they don't understand that the VA or most major health insurance companies pay for screening. But they may also just think, oh, I don't want to go to the doctor. Dr. Moghanaki, would you talk for a moment about how easy, how simple, and painless getting a low-dose CT scan is?
There's nothing simpler in the world. I mean, you
Nothing.
literally walk into a room, they say hi, they lay you on a flat bed, they say, and it slides, ooh, like a scary roller coaster. It just slides slowly forward into this donut, and they say, hold your breath, and they say, you're done. You just leave. That's it. You put your clothes back on or whatever. You usually don't even have to take your clothes off. But I think the barrier to getting to that simple, literally, you're in and out of the room in 3 minutes, 180 seconds max. But there's two main barriers. There's the stigma that maybe the patient has, but there's also kind of a stigma that the healthcare system has. We actually wrote about this. We wrote a position statement on behalf of the American Cancer Society's National Lung Cancer Roundtable. I was able to lead the writing group for this, and we basically we were very authentic. We said, look, even the healthcare system itself isn't diving all in to save the lives of veterans or non-veterans who may be at risk for lung cancer. Why aren't we doing this? My tribe, who are a bunch of lung cancer screening enthusiasts, we feel like we're firefighters. We're running into burning homes, we're pulling people alive, pulling people out, get out before you die, basically saying, go get your lung screened. Like there's no alternative. Failure is not an option. You don't leave anyone in the field, right? You screen them. Lung cancer kills more people than any other cancer. Ignoring it is not an option. It should not be an option. So I feel like there's a stigma at both levels. And I think that the patient who may be reluctant is not going to probably overcome their doctor's ambivalence towards it. So it all needs to really begin, we think, and this on our roundtable stigma, it's literally called the Stigma Nihilism Committee, believes that probably one of the most important steps that we can do is activate primary care physicians to care, to love all of their patients, including those who smoke too much, and tell them to go get their lung screened.
Which gives such hope, Dr. Moghanaki. I mean, that's outstanding. And I do think there is that hesitancy to even go to the doctor. I loved what you said about You don't leave your buddies behind. So for those vets who are out there and have done this, like Donnita, what advice would you give other veterans who are nervous or hesitant?
Well, I am very talkative when it comes about my lung cancer. I belong to a hiking group that has 32,000 women in it, and I'm constantly talking with them. I'm talking to cashiers. Everywhere I go, I say I'm a lung cancer survivor. I wear shirts that say, and it just starts conversation. Um, am so fortunate to have been diagnosed at stage 1A. I don't think there's a much better place to be diagnosed at other than not having it at all. Um, and when I was first diagnosed, I don't know how come, but this calm came over me when I after my PET scan, and my pulmonologist was like, "Yes, this is more than likely lung cancer," and I said, I literally said to him, "I guess I need to kiss my butt goodbye, right?" And he went, "No, this isn't your grandfather's lung cancer." And you caught it early, and there's so many treatments out there now. He says you have a wonderful chance at survival. So I did not have any symptoms. I was fortunate enough that my personality had me digging into things that I found out on my own, that I was eligible for a lung cancer screening. And so because of that, I pushed and advocated for myself. I've met so many people that have been surviving 10, 20 years and living great quality of life. My quality of life did not change at all after my surgery. Yes, I had my recovery time, but I'm out there climbing mountains. And I'm running around in my conversion van with my grandchildren, going all over the place, camping in different places. And I'm 70 years old. And I have a wonderful quality of life.
That provides a lot of hope. When you said, yeah, some people maybe they don't want to know, we have heard that.
Yeah.
So,
I've
doctor,
heard
I mean, yeah, how much difference does catching lung cancer early make in terms of survival or even treatment options?
Yeah, so lung cancer is either spread or it hasn't. Once it's spread, it is a difficult cancer to treat. There's a lot of appointments, there's costs, there's time, there's drugs. You cannot cure a cancer that's spread by either cutting it out or zapping it with radiation. So the name of the game is early detection. If it's very small, like lung cancer is curable if you catch it early. And then once you catch it early, what we do, we will continuously scan our patients for surveillance afterwards. And if another one pops up, we can cure that one too before it spreads. And if another one pops up, we can cure it too. Now, unfortunately, sometimes when we do diagnose someone with lung cancer, it looks like it hasn't spread. We treat only what's visible, again, either with surgery or radiation. And then a year later, there's more cancer like somewhere else in the body. In that situation, we caught it early, but not early enough. And that's where a lot of biomarker blood tests are coming to see, can we catch it even earlier before it even shows up on a scan?
So, Dr. Moghanaki, I think that's so interesting what you talked about. And you referred to blood, and there's some new research out there where veterans are stepping up to donate blood for research studies. Can you explain to us why these blood donations are so valuable, and what they're going to lead to? Where's this going? Where's this research going?
Wow, I'm so glad you're bringing attention to this. We're undergoing an extraordinary revolution in early detection, which is we're moving away from just having to get a scan like a mammogram or having to put a scope down your mouth to go down and look around your stomach or up the other side to look around your colon. That a single blood test would be able to detect the presence of cancer at its earliest stage. And we never knew when we were going to get to this day, but there's been some really good scientists that have discovered new ways of measuring things that are floating around in the blood. That's a signal that there's cancer in the body. But we're never going to move these blood tests into FDA approval and insurance paying for them unless more and more people roll up their sleeves, give a couple vials of blood to science. Most of the companies that are and scientists that are doing these studies are actually reimbursing veterans for their times. We have veterans who are actually agreeing for mobile phlebotomists. Those are people who draw blood to go to the veteran's home and draw the blood in the living room, making it very simple for the veterans. They don't have to drive into the clinic or anything like that. And to date, to my knowledge, thousands of veterans have participated in very high volume and are rolling their sleeves up to help us find a better cancer screening test. So just like when you go into your doctor's visit once a year and give blood to check on, I don't know, your cholesterol or do you have diabetes, you can have another test using the same drop of blood that says, do you have cancer? And then no matter what the cancer is, you catch it early, you cure it, move on with the rest of your life.
Yeah, Donita, when Dr. Moghanaki was talking about these fellow veterans donating blood to these research studies, I saw you smiling and nodding your head. Do you know veterans that are doing that?
That's a wonderful thing because, you know, one of my growth experiences inside of coming into the lung cancer community was the horrible realization that there are many people out there that are in their 20s and 30s that are diagnosed at stage 3 and stage 4, and with no known risk factors. But what I've been wishing for is a liquid biopsy, which is what Dr. Moghanaki was talking about, is that something that could be perfected and become routine that could catch it in these young people, and so that they don't have to be diagnosed at stage 3 and stage 4, and have a chance to get to 70 years old and be climbing mountains and playing with their grandchildren, right? So yeah, that's why I am so excited about the thought of liquid biopsies.
Yeah, it is very, very encouraging. I want to ask you both about clinical trials. And Donita, I want to ask about your experience, but Dr. Moghanaki, tee us up here a bit. How are clinical trials today giving patients the promise of new treatments that maybe weren't available a few years ago, maybe even not even a few months ago?
Well, medicine and our capabilities have gone forward not because of just random thoughts going on in a laboratory. We've actually evaluated promising ideas with human participation in research studies. And there's no, doubt about this. Veterans enrolled in the VA have been one of the greatest contributors to some of the most important healthcare breakthroughs that we know and are using around the world for cardiovascular disease, for stroke, and for cancer as well. We've been standing on the shoulders of other people who have enrolled in clinical trials. And one of the greatest joys that I experience when I go to a medical conference is when someone presents the results of a very important research study that is now going to change practice tomorrow when I go back into the clinic. They universally thank the patients who participated and their families because it requires a little bit more time and participation. But my God, I mean, like if you can help another person and that person could be in the hundreds or thousands of other persons, I would always sign up if it was me. And then the sad truth is sometimes we really don't have any good options. So the clinical trial is really your best hope for getting access to tomorrow's treatment. It might be better than what you're getting today, might not. Again, if we knew, we wouldn't be doing the study, but it gives at least an opportunity to make the world a better place while, we're dealing with cancer, which is, a horrible disease otherwise.
And for so many people that their cancer has mutated and now whatever treatment they're on isn't working, enrolling in that next clinical trial could mean the difference between not doing well or adding years to their life. Donnita, what do you think? Have you ever been on a clinical trial? And if not, if something were to happen, would you consider it?
Well, it's an interesting question for me because being diagnosed at stage 1A, I wasn't even offered biomarker testing. Anyway, while I was at the roundtable, on the stage in a patient panel, I said that I had not been able to get my biomarker testing. And someone in the audience came up to me afterwards and connected me with this doctor at Johns Hopkins. And 10 days later, I was in his office getting my biomarker testing submitted, which is like, that's the power of the lung cancer community. I mean, that's just amazing, right? I was told no at my community cancer center. And then 10 days later, there I am at an NCI, seeing one of the top doctors in the country, getting my biomarker testing done. Well, I was also told while I was at that roundtable that because I was within 12 weeks of resection, that there was a phase 2 trial. And it was for people that were within 12 weeks of resection that were stage 1A. And if I was EGFR, that I would qualify for this trial that would hopefully prevent recurrence. Well, I didn't know what my biomarker was. Well, when my results came back, I was KRAS G12C. So I was not eligible for that trial. But what that armed me with was, well, at first I was like, oh no, do I go back to my community cancer center? I mean, I challenged my doctor. I went beyond him and went and got my biomarker testing done. And I'm like, no, I need to go back. I need to let him know that, yes, it wouldn't have changed my treatment if you went by standard of care, but it could have changed my treatment if I knew my biomarker and I had this trial eligible to me because I have a high rate of recurrence, right? And this could have maybe prevented a recurrence, and maybe it would have been an option for me.
As you say, the power of that whole community
Yes.
facing lung cancer and looking for answers. Dr. Moghanaki, give us your quick explanation of what a biomarker is exactly, and then what exciting biomarker-driven advances are on the horizon you're seeing for lung cancer.
Well, a biomarker is just a deeper look at the cancer. We've been looking at cancer biopsies under a microscope for now a couple hundred years. You just kind of look at the same thing over and over, and we've gotten good in saying, well, oh, it looks like a lung cancer, it looks like a breast cancer, and then when we take the lung cancers, we've been able to divide it into like several different types: adenocarcinoma, squamous carcinoma. And then within those carcinomas, we say, well, this one looks mild, this one looks moderate, this one looks like a bad actor. And that's it. We've been stuck with that for a long time. So we've always wanted to get a deeper look. What else is going on in that cancer? And so there's been a genomic omics revolution. So again, biomarker, just, the biology marker of the cancer allows us to look more deeper into the cancer than just the good old microscope that many of us probably were introduced to, when we were in high school.
I like that. I think that the understanding what that is and why it's so important and how it can truly change the way you're treated from taking pills to having chemo. You really don't know what that is when you first walk in until you really know your biomarker.
So, Dr. Moghanaki, what tips do you have from veterans who maybe are a little bashful or not used to advocating for themselves to ensure that they do get connected with the right doctors, the right specialists?
Well, the first step is please find out if you're eligible for VA healthcare or other benefits. The government has made it easier than ever before. Could it be easier? Even easier? Probably. But the largest appropriation since the GI Bill was passed in the last several years, it's called the PACT Act. Go online, just do a search, find it, read about it, and I'm sure there's a button. You just click on it, type in your information, and guess what? You might already have been eligible, you just didn't know. So that's step number one. Step number two, if you're on a base, based on what Donnita has shared, we all know it, right? There's bad stuff on those bases. Go get checked. I mean, the NFL is doing it for all of its players right now, based after all the fiasco with the traumatic brain injury stuff. If you're a football player who retires from the NFL, you get health checks for the rest of your life. They've got really nice contracts with some of the best healthcare systems. They don't leave anyone behind. And the VA, if you're eligible for healthcare, they will take care of you and try to find out. I just feel really bad for the veteran who served who's just under the eligibility criteria. But with that said, still, if you're just a person living and you're over the age of 40, 50, 60, you got to start seeing the doctor. And I can speak on behalf of doctors. Doctors are actually really bad patients. We don't take care of our health either. And I'll just leave with this parting words. If you're aging, you're feeling older, you don't need to look, don't ever call yourself old. Old is like a terminal phrase. No, you're just older, like an antique car. Imagine an old antique Ford or an antique Mercedes or whatever antique car you love. You got to be careful and delicate with those cars. But if keep the muffler good, take care of the transmission, change all the oils, those cars age, and you know what? They become more and more valuable over time. So take care of your health, focus on prevention, and no one needs to die earlier than they need to. Not at all.
And there's so much help that's out there, right? Like patient navigators, veteran service officers, VA hotlines. There are opportunities where you can get help if you just feel lost in the system. Is that right, Dr. Moghanaki?
Yes, there really are. And then you just go to a local veterans group, right? I mean, there's no fraternity or sorority bigger than, veteran groups in the country. And generally, whenever I go visit them, same problem. Only half of them are actually using the VA for the healthcare. But you know what? They're all veterans. And I love the credo, leave no one behind, and they'll be there for you if you need them.
All right, a quick question for you both before you have to leave. What gives you hope about the future of lung cancer care for veterans in particular? Donnita, will you go first?
Well, I don't know if I can say for veterans in particular. I can say what gives me hope is the research, is the liquid biopsy and the targeted therapies and the immunology. And I mean, it's just the more that I talk to different survivors and the more that I see what they've been through and how the lives that they're able to live, it just gives me tremendous hope, because I was paralyzed by fear for a while when I first came to understand what my recurrence risk was. I didn't realize it. That wasn't something that was really explained to me when I went through the surgery. It was something that I found out afterwards. And I kind of had this little lung cancer beast sitting on my shoulder, whispering in my ear that I will be back. I will be back. And I was paralyzed for a while. But being in the community, the hope that I see from people's personal experiences is very encouraging.
I imagine. Dr. Moghanaki, how about you? What gives you hope?
Well, my hope might be delusional, because my hope is that the progress in the VA will become an example and a beacon of how to really drive down the mortality of lung cancer so that people can get lung cancer, but that's okay, live their lives, and reduce the number of people who die from lung cancer. My hope is that, the progress in the VA will help all veterans and ultimately all Americans take better care of their health, especially when it comes to lung cancer risk, in that the VA's contributions to developing biomarker tests, new blood tests, with so many veterans participating in studies, will lead to a better future where we'll catch these things at the earliest stages of disease. And so I think it's delusional just because the VA itself might not be a priority to kind of send this message out, but this is kind of, I guess, what we're doing here. It's just to shed a little bit more light on what's happening so that we can just kind of move the entire pile forward and live better and healthier lives.
Well said, and thank you both so much for your perspectives. To our veteran listeners, please know lung cancer screening is easy, it's available through the VA, and it can save your life. So please talk to your doctor about being screened, and please call over to the VA or go online and find out what the qualifications are and what needs to happen, because it really can save your life. So thank you both so much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us on Hope with Answers, Living with Lung Cancer. If today's discussion resonated with you, please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts to stay updated on breakthrough research and inspiring stories. Visit lcfamerica.org for resources on clinical trials and treatment advances. And connect with LCFA's community on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, where your story might inspire others facing similar challenges. If you found value in today's episode, please share it or leave a review. These small actions help more people discover potentially life-changing information. Together, we're advancing science and empowering hope, one conversation at a time.